Who's ready for part 2? Good morning, everybody. My name is Mariah Rivers, and thank you for clicking on this video. Today is going to be part 2 of building my reptile shelf. In the last video, we put it all together, and in this video, we will be putting all of the animals back on the shelf. You'll see that footage, as well as I'm gonna do a small tour, I think. So let's get going with that. Starting where we left off, basically I decided to start putting some of my smaller tanks on to the shelf because I want to make sure that I was placing everything where I wanted it instead of having to shuffle everything around. At this point, I realized that with the shelves where they were at the moment, it would be really hard to get into both this betta fish tank that I'm playing with now and also my terrarium tank. So what I decided to do was to remove one of the shelves and move it down so that it would be a better height for all of the other tanks. So I began by removing these plastic safety pins that were with the kids. So I removed those and then I start taking the beams off. I measured just to make sure that I was putting it in a place that I didn't have to do this all over again. So there's that. There's Lincoln, always curious as ever. He was very confused during this whole thing. He was like, "What is going on, Mom?" Anyway, so then I started doing the exact same thing on the back, removing the safety pins and taking off the shelf beam, moving it down to the correct height, and making sure that it is secure. Here I am replacing those safety pins, making sure everything is in. Now I decided that I wanted to take out the bottom beam, so I'm just doing the entire process again. You can see Lincoln in the corner just watching me, wondering what I'm doing the entire time. So finally, once I get that bottom shelf off, I replace these support beams in the middle and replace the grate on the shelf. And I started putting all of my tanks back on. Then I moved my bigger gecko tanks into the room, and as you can see, it was a little bit difficult to get them up so high, but it was manageable, so yeah. Then I just started organizing everything. I began putting my fish tank back together, so here I am putting the filter back. And that is me wiring all of my extension cords and light cords and stuff into the back. I started filling up my fish tank, as you can see, gallon by gallon, because the fish were in my usual bucket that I use to fill everything. So once I had the fish back in, I slowly started putting back in the decor, making sure that the fish were on the other end when I was putting stuff in. Then I put their branch back in, and don't worry, I was really careful about where the fish were and where I was pushing down and everything like that. Adjusted everything so it fit how it was, and then I filled up the rest of the tank with dechlorinated water. Anyway. So up on the top shelf is mostly just storage at the moment. So I have a larger sterilite tub that I just use to hold animals or carry things in or whatever. Then I have some pothos growing. I just want a big trailing vine pothos here. And then these two are travel carriers and hatchling bins for geckos. So let's move on to the shelf right below this. Alright, so first up we have the Dalmatian breeding group tank. This is a bioactive setup that I made myself. As you can see, the plants are flourishing. They did have some damage when I bought them, so that's that. But I don't know if you'll be able to see, but little Iris is right here. I have two other geckos in here. I have my Super Dalmatian male that I haven't named yet, as well as my patternless Dalmatian female Kione, which you probably have seen pictures of if you're following my Instagram. So go check out my Instagram down below. This tank is a 18 by 18 by 24. It's a good size for breeding groups of geckos. Typically people use like tubs for breeding, but I just have these. So the breeding groups are in glass tanks, and so that is our first group. Next to the Dalmatian tank, we have my Harlequin breeding group. In here is 3 females and a male. The first gecko that I ever owned, her name is Herc, because I thought she was a boy, and she is in here. She is the entire reason that I got into crested geckos. So we have Herc, we have 2 other pretty, one of them's a Harlequin, the other one's a Flame. And then we have Jinx, who is my red Dalmatian Harlequin male. And again, this is also a bioactive setup. It's an 18 by 18 by 24 Exoterra tank. And yeah. Alright, so next to the breeding group tanks, this is my 12 by 12 by 18 Exoterra tank. Currently, it's being used to raise up a gecko that I had bought back in December, who isn't quite big enough to be breeding size yet. Her name is Thea. She's hiding in here. But yes, so this first top shelf is really mostly dedicated to my cresties. The other thing that I have is I have all of my feeders, and then back here I have all of my springtails and isopods set up. And then water for various things. So this is the final shelf. Basically, I have my male betta fish tank here. He also has 9 tetras that live with him, just to fill up some of the space. It's just a 10-gallon tank. I have pothos growing in the filter, as well as a heater and all that jazz that goes with betta fish. To the right is my 20-gallon tall terrarium that I use to grow plants out, so that they are large enough to be put in tanks and put around my house. And then this tank right here, if you can see it, is a special surprise that I am going to be making a video on very shortly. On the very bottom here, we have just a couple of storage bins. I have one for my fish, my reptiles, and then one for Lincoln and all of his stuff. There's a chicken outside. I probably should say that my neighbors have chickens, right? There's not just a stray chicken somewhere. Alright everyone, that is the end of this video. Thank you so much for coming back for part 2. If you missed part 1, where I go buy the shelf and set it up, there will be it linked at the end of this video or in the description. If you like these kind of videos, my channel is full of reptile videos and various things that I'm going to be doing, and especially focusing around crested geckos, but there's also going to be some other videos in the future, especially one coming up next, which is a video about 2 animals that I rescued and took in and are going to be finding better homes for than where they came from. I am super excited to finally have this shelf set up in a way that, one, displays my animals in such a organized and beautiful way, but also just because I have them all in one spot and they're not all over the place, and I'm not running all over my house trying to take care of all of them all the time. So if you like this video, please make sure to give it a thumbs up and comment down below if you have any questions. Alright everyone, I will see you in the next video. Bye!